Hey, hey, mamas. Welcome back to another awesome episode of the Mama Work It podcast. So glad you're here. You're joining us. My name is Marissa Lonick. I am your host, working mama of four, founder of Mama Work It, where we support women in the juggle of mom life, work life, wife life, fill in the blank life. And today, amazing episode, amazing guest. We're talking all about time blocking. Her name is Chelsi Jo Moore. She is a wife, mom, CEO, top ranked podcaster, and system obsessed professional. She's here to help every mom create the consistent income she wants and needs without sacrificing her home or herself in the process. After 17 years in corporate and 5 years of running an event-based business, Chelsi Jo realized it was time to share the systems she had created to stay organized and keep up with the demands of being a busy mom so other women could have the same success without the overwhelm. She specializes in teaching other work from home moms the strategic systems they need to manage their home in as little time as possible, plus create major impact and income in the hours they set aside to work. So from time blocking and fundamental needs to workflows and team management, Chelsi is confident that her strategic systems are the key to every modern working mom's success. I know this is going to be such a good episode. Chelsi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. This is my jam. I love chatting, obviously about systems, but 100% how to juggle home and business, life and business, marriage and business, working out, trying to make money and do all the things. So thanks for having me.
Good. Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear more just about your journey as a mom, a working mom, and kind of what led you here.
Yeah, I um take it way back actually. I'm now currently a mom of two. My oldest is about to turn 13, but so I have my 12-year-old now and 7-year-old, and I've been married for the last 9 years. And which obviously the math on that means that I was a single mom for a while and before I got married, and now we have our family and all the things that we do, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I um actually, whenever I was in high school, broke up with my high school sweetheart because he was on a path to get married and have kids right away. And I thought that that meant that I couldn't have a career. And so I was like, no, I'm going to work. I'm going to have a career. I'm going to go to college. And I didn't know that you could do both. In my mind, I thought that you couldn't. And so that set me up to be what I was in my 20s, which I definitely don't know that that was um, the easier or the better or more fruitful road that I took. But my 20s was a decade of exploring how to make money and how to support myself, and also juggling this idea of really longing to be a domestic, nurturing wife and mom. And so, fast forward, I was a professional sign language interpreter for 17 years, nationally certified, and worked my way up the corporate ladder and had some really exclusive private clients that I absolutely adored and loved. Was making my own schedule, but I had to have a sitter as a single mom to do that. I made a decent income. It provided for me and for her to be able to live on her own. Um, and then I started an event-based business with my mom, and I was doing floral design, and we were doing some pretty boutique and really in-depth, detailed weddings in the Phoenix area. And that was so fun, but I was exhausted and I wasn't making the impact or the income that I really wanted. And I had kind of topped out in my interpreting career. So when I got married, my husband is a firefighter and a real estate investor. So whenever he wasn't working at the fire station, he was working from home. And I had we had our youngest very quickly after we got married. Like, I got pregnant right away. Um, and so I was drowning in motherhood and trying to cook Pinterest meals because I finally was getting to fulfill my calling as this wife and mom, and I wanted to organize all the things. And, you know, I I also really had to make money. Like, it wasn't an option. It wasn't even like, oh, this is fun and I like doing events, or oh, I like interpreting. It was a constant struggle to keep my portion of the income flowing. My husband moved here from Ohio and had to take a huge pay cut. And it just was not, there was no lateral transfer from the fire department he'd been invested in for over 10 years, which was a huge hit. And we were just making it work. And so I started creating systems and it was really working for me. And essentially I created a home management system, started a blog, and that blog quickly turned into my podcast. And that podcast is what catapulted my business into what is now a multiple six-figure company that teaches systems in home and business to women. And I have a team of people that I run, and this is what I do full time. And it's really fun to see how everything kind of all came together. But I myself am still just a mom that's juggling home and business every single day, just using the system that I created, So yeah, that's how I got here.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Well, I can't wait to dive in. And I love that you say that because I think sometimes people look at, successful people like you in this space that are like teaching other people to do it. And they forget that you're in the trenches just like we are.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like you're living it. So if you can make this work, we can make this work. So I'm excited to hear more about what it is and how it works. So you have a lot of systems that you utilize in this working mom life. But I want to talk about time blocking today specifically. So for someone listening who has no idea what that is, give us an overview of time blocking 101.
Yeah. Well, time blocking 101 is a great question. And I feel like it's so necessary and important to start from like the 101 because there are, I think when people hear the word time blocking, they automatically think of the thing that I absolutely don't do. So when I first started looking like everybody else for the perfect productivity schedule, the perfect daily routine, right? You can type so many different things into Pinterest or Google and find a blog, maybe find a YouTube video about it. It's a little bit overwhelming. And essentially what I found was not helpful. It wasn't geared for the woman who's really juggling a home and trying to work. And so I ended up creating a system. It's a 5-block time blocking method that I really tested over and over and over and over and over again every single week. I was collecting data on what did and didn't work. And I ended up with the time blocking method that I still use every single day of my life. And I've taught thousands of women how to use. And essentially, what I came up with, what I learned through observation and kind of my systematic lens is they're just like built into my eyes. That's how God made me, was like these little systematic contact lens that I can't take off. Like it's just how I have to see the world. And so it kind of just unfolded naturally. But there's only 3 main categories that we touch in a day as a woman who is caretaking, right? So if you're a mom and you're a wife and you're trying to make money, whether you're homeschooling or you have a farm or whatever, and you have extended family members you care for, whether you're volunteering at the church, like it doesn't matter how intricate and different and on demand and chaotic you think your life is, it all still fits into 3 categories. And so I took those 3 categories and I started them first, second, third, and then we layered that backwards. Then we hit the second and the first again. So it mirrors each other like a piece of paper that you fold in half and it carbon copies in your day, right? So of your 5 time blocks, what I realized these 3 categories are yourself. That's category 1. Your second category is serving and giving, which is your home and your family, right? And then that third category is making money, however you're going to plan to do that. But you can't just hit those things once. You can't just like show up for your kids once in the day. That's absolutely not going to happen, right? So we needed to repeat this. So then I just worked it backwards. So we do the first time block of the day, could be 15 minutes, could be 2 hours. We can get into those details later, but you spend a little bit of time on yourself before you have children's eyeballs in your face, depending on what age they're at. If they are your alarm clock, you already know that your day is starting out behind. They're already hungry. They've already colored on a wall. They've already done something before they got to your bedroom. My kids are past that stage now, but I remember it well. And And that was the first way that I actually learned that this time block has to come first, because I remember being so defeated when my little one would come downstairs when she went to her independent big girl bed. And I was waking up to her nose next to my nose at the bed, and I was like, ah, and it's so jarring. And you're like, well, here we go. We're on. Like it's go time. And I was like, we can't, this is not it. Like every time that happens, I have a unproductive or a bad day or whatever word you want to use. So after you spend a little time on yourself, then you go into your AM block, and that's the time where we focus on our kids and our family. Then you go into your work block, and then your PM block, you're back to focusing on your kids and your family. And then the last block of the day is you're focusing on yourself. So it's that wind down time. And this to me is the essence of time blocking. Creating a really rigid schedule for yourself where you've gone into your Google Calendar and you said, I'm going to time block time to do social media or Instagram, or I'm time blocking time for emails, and I'm time blocking time to make phone calls. That's just a super rigid schedule. And when a curveball comes at you, you can't continue your day. It throws everything off, and it's very hard to repeat. It doesn't help with the bandwidth. I actually think that it causes more stress in our mind. And so when you set up this framework of these 5 time blocks, it becomes very easy for you to set up what I like to teach are fundamental needs and routine stacks inside of those, so that you can handle the many ever-changing curveballs that come at you when you're a busy mom.
Yeah. So important to say that, because we could plan every detail, and the probability that that would line up and happen is very slim, right?
Yeah.
Especially as a working mom. So it's important to be nimble. And I feel like this structure that you presented with the time blocking allows for that, which is so crucial and important. So I'm curious, can you tell us what a typical day looks like for you using this time block? Like can you exemplify it for us?
Yeah. Well, the one thing that's really important before I go into that example is to say that the reason why I created this is because I had no consistency with my schedule, and I needed consistency in order to scale. And sometimes scaling just looks like getting through your laundry, right? It's not just like, how do we scale our business? For me, it was like, why am I always behind on the things that I know we have to do every week? It's not news to us that people need to be fed, toilets and dishes need to be cleaned, laundry needs to be kept up with, errands need to be run. This stuff is so required. Why am I behind on these things? And so I wanted to get so good at that I could, first of all, get it out of my head and get it out of my brain, and then use my time really wisely for other things. Whether I was going to hire that out or just get really good at it myself, you know, I've gone through seasons of looking at that, but I wanted consistency so badly, and I just didn't have it. With my husband, he works 2 days and then he's off 4, and it always revolves. So he'll work Monday, Tuesday, then Monday, Sunday, and then Saturday, Sunday, and then Saturday, Friday, right? And then Friday, Thursday, and it just keeps revolving like this forever. And so I needed something that was going to help me be consistent with a schedule that was not consistent. On top of that, my first daughter goes back and forth and has shared parenting time. And so some weeks I handle all of her stuff, and some weeks I support it from afar. And the reason why I say this is because I want everyone to understand that this is not something that works if you have a consistent schedule. It's actually the opposite. It's there to help you for when things are not consistent. So I actually have certain days of the week and certain weeks of the month where my time blocks look very different. And that's why I created it, and that's why I love it. So I teach an A/B method. And so you can create 2 variations of this, even 3 if you really needed to, but we try and get it down to 2 so it's easier to manage, to where Monday, Wednesday, Fridays look the same, or Tuesday, Thursdays look the same, and Monday, Wednesday, Fridays are different. For me, my ABs are actually every other week. So my daughter's here for a week, and then she's gone for a week, and then she's here for a week, and then she's gone for a week. So 1 week of the month, I mean, first and third week of the month, I'm all in on homeschool when she's here because we homeschool her. And then the second and fourth, she's not here. And so obviously when she's not here, I cram in a bunch of time for my business. So I'm very available for homeschooling. So I have these variations just to kind of put that out there. But now let's talk through an example of what does this look like. So in my 5 time blocks, I wake up in the morning. Right now, in this season of life, all my kids are and have been, I sleep trained my youngest one. And so she and the older one obviously is a great sleeper now, but they are in bed between 8 o'clock for the youngest, 9 o'clock for the oldest, 7:30, 8:30, somewhere in there. And then I know that they don't wake up before 7 o'clock in the morning, right? And so I get up either 5:30 or 6, and I have an hour and a half to myself. So that morning routine block for me has my ready routine in it. It has a Bible study in it. And when it's warmer out, I definitely get a walk in, but I don't like to go outside when it's cold. So I'm not doing that right now in this season. And that's pretty much how I spend my morning. And then as soon as the kids wake up, I jump into my AM block. And then we all have a series of routines that are stacked on top of each other. So they have their morning routine and then the before school routine. And then I do one specific fundamental need for the house, whether that's my to-dos for the week, or if that is a laundry tidy queue for the week, or if it's zone cleaning for the week. That's the thing that happens right there. Kids get dropped off at school. If we're homeschooling, then on those weeks, obviously we drop off the little one at her Montessori that she goes to. And then the oldest one I start work and homeschool at the same time, and we kind of work in tandem. Or if she's not here, then I just go deep into my work block. I do all of that, and then I'm done with my work block. I get a workout in, and then the after school routine comes, and then all of the extracurricular activities that we do, and then dinner routine, bedtime routine, the PM block is done. And I'm tidying as I go all day long to ensure that at the end of the day, when the kids are in bed, I do not have anything left to do in my house, because now it's time for my nighttime routine block, which is 100% focused on me. And so I try and get my skincare routine in like 3 times a week. Sometimes I read, sometimes I journal, sometimes my husband and I watch a movie or we'll play a game. And that's just a time for us to unwind. So those are these major buckets that I know live and breathe in that same time every day, whether they start and end. Like this Friday, as an example, my daughter has a half day. So my work block is ending early. My PM block is starting early, right? And so my PM block is going to be from noon until 8:30 at night instead of 3 o'clock until 8:30 at night, right? And so I just move those lines for when my time blocks start and stop, and what routine stacks we're going to stack inside of there, depending on what we have going on the calendar.
Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that detailed overview. So good. So many good nuggets. What I'm taking away mostly from this is like the fluidity of it,
Yeah.
right? So there's very strict guidelines with regards to these 3 categories and when they happen, but
Mm-hmm.
there's also fluidity in how long they are and kind of what time they start and what time they end. And that's so critical and important. What other sort of like big takeaways do you feel like are really important in how you time block versus like how the average person out there might Google and find, other systems of how to do it?
Yeah, the biggest thing, and this is like the number one thing that we have to help all of our students with once they start learning this method is and I talk about this so much, whether it's, a workshop I'm hosting or in one of my like online webinars or whatever it is, I feel like this is the one thing that I have to talk about so much. That seems so obvious once you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, duh. But I don't think people really recognize it. The the classic traditional time blocking method that you'll see and that people are still giving advice on a regular basis has a ton of gaps in it. And for me, it's like when you look at your entire day, this is what clicked in my brain when I was like, I'm going to go all in and I'm going to get really serious, because I genuinely at that time, I wanted to stop my event-based business. I wanted to stop interpreting, and I wanted to make money from home so I could be with my kids. That was like what really tipped me over the edge. And I was like, look, Oprah and the president and whoever else have the same amount of hours in the day as I do. Like, there's a whole nother level of efficiency that can be unlocked here. I'm about done drowning in like remedial chores. Like I'm done, you know? And so I sat down and I looked and I was like, well, if you take 30-minute pockets a day, that's an hour and a half in a day. Do you want to know how much I can get done in my business in an hour and a half if I'm really systematic when I sit down to do that, which is why I also created systems in my business, right? I didn't have a bunch of time, I had a very small amount of time. I started with 4 hours a week. That's it. And I knew that I could create a lot of impact in that small amount of time. So I started looking, and all of the other people that were teaching this, there was these gaps and they were about 30 minutes. And I'm like, what are we doing with those 30 minutes? That is like precious time to me. That's all I got. So I started scooping up those 30 minutes and consolidating them into one chunk of time. And that is what crafted the work block originally, you know? And it's like, man, where can you find that time? So for me and my method, it's like from the time your eyes open until you close your eyes at the end of the day, we are using that time intentionally. Like there's no time. It doesn't mean that I'm cramming it. My life is actually, it actually moves very slow, except for days when we have a tight schedule, which is not often. But I'm not running around doing a million things. I have strategically placed everything that needs to be done in my home, from laundry, meal planning, family fun, date night, my to-dos, all of that stuff is strategically placed once or twice a week, and it repeats itself every single week. So I know where it's going to live, and I don't feel like I have to rush around to do it all the time. And then it frees up all this other time for me to use very intentionally inside of these 5 time blocks. So the most important thing that you can do is ensure that you know and you try really hard to craft what I like to call the domino effect. You want your day to tip like dominoes without having to force it, without having to run through everything. And where's the bag? And where's the soccer cleats? And oh, shoot, I forgot the packed lunch because they're going on a field trip. Like, we don't want to feel that all the time. It's fight or flight, right? And it puts us in this space where we're constantly feeling like everything's urgent when it's actually not. So really trying to ensure that you have found that rhythm and that cycle for you is super important. And I do believe there's not one person that I've worked with that this 5 time blocking method has not worked for. Especially if you're living in a similar culture, right? Which every American really is. Most Americans are. Um, so just sitting down and looking at making sure that you don't have gaps in your day. And if you're using someone else's method, to ensure that there's no gaps in there, because that time is invaluable, really.
Yeah, so true. What do you do on days where life happens? And so, like, maybe you anticipated you would have, the 4 hour time block of work, or even like
Yeah.
the 2 hour time block or whatever it
Mhm.
is. But then, like, your kid's homesick from school, or
Yeah.
you have to go pick them up from school because they get sick there. Like, I had a week a few weeks ago where not 1 but 2 days I had to go back to school and pick up my son because he came home with strep throat, took the
Oh,
antibiotic, felt better, and then 2 days later we sent him back to school and he got sent home again because now he caught the flu. Like, so it was just like
oh
a whirlwind of a
my
week. And I'm very intentional in how I utilize my time, but life happens. And especially as a mom,
God.
life is
Mhm.
gonna life.
Yep.
So what do you recommend in situations like that?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that happened, because it's just the worst when
Oh,
it
it's
does.
the season. It's all
I
it's all
know.
good.
I know. We had a season where ours was like, we didn't even know, but her strep throat presented as an appendicitis. Like, everybody, the doctors in the ER,
Oh,
they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. Went through every scan. Well, come to find out, my little one, when she gets strep throat, which I like to share this story because for some moms, like, I wish another mom would have told me that strep presented like this, because she literally had zero signs of your typical strep throat. Anyway, that was the season. Strep throat's a doozy. And we just all had the flu that come through here too. And it was a gnarly one this year, that's for sure. So I definitely know what it feels like when life is lifing, as they say. So here's why I think on the home front. And I do want to talk a little bit about it on the business front too, because that's essentially what the problem is, right? If we had nothing else to do except for just caregive all day long, like, okay, that's a little bit easier to manage. But it's very rare. It's very rare that there's a woman that that's all she's doing. Even if she's not working, she's likely homeschooling, or she's on the PTO, or she's doing something crazy amount of hours for her church or whatever. Like, she's giving of herself somewhere and she's overcommitted, right? And doesn't have the capacity to know how to keep up. And I use overcommitted loosely, just meaning like it feels like overcommitment until we get it structured and organized so that we can keep up, right? I think these are beautiful things. And it's just, I love to see a mom overcommit herself because there's so much that we can give of our talents with the time that we have. But I really think the baseline for me is when you have a home management system in place and you have a task management in place for your business, like an actual operating system. These two things, when curveballs come at you, you have a baseline that you know that you can come back to. So for me, when I call it survival mode, and I love to teach my students what it looks like to maintain a home management system through survival mode, what are healthy expectations on that? And then also, what how do you get out of survival mode and get back into the swing of things much quicker when you did have now you have tons of laundry because somebody's been sick, and you're backed up and you didn't get to the grocery store, or you did just do like a meal delivery order but it's not the same as when you actually go, right? There's just so many different things that can happen to throw you off base. So straightforward answer is, whenever you have something that has thrown you off and you have your time blocks, you have your routine stacks in place. I'm going to go back to that domino analogy and say, excuse me, that when you pull a domino out and it doesn't tip and it doesn't flow, right? You remember playing dominoes as a kid or watching another kid? All you have to do is get up and go over and tip the next domino, and the rest of them fall. And that is what it's like when you have a home management system in place and you know that these are the repeat things that happen. If you pull a couple dominoes out, it's fine. We improvise, adapt, and overcome. That is a military and a paramilitary phrase that we get here in our family from the fire department, from my husband's influence. And I think it fits so perfectly for motherhood. But when you improvise, adapt, and overcome, that middle section of adaptability is so much easier when you have systems in place, because now we're not leaning on our own strength. We don't need to lean on coffee. I mean, it's fun, but like, we're not living and dying by exhaustion every single day. And so our adaptability, just in the bandwidth, let alone the own physical ability to adapt, because we are tired. We're up in the middle of the night with the kids, and we have deadlines in our job, and we have deadlines at school for the kids, their schedules. There's a lot going on. So that adaptability opens up, and then these curveballs actually become so much easier to handle. And I don't think that that really is possible when you don't have a home management system in place. So number one, I would highly encourage you to get that revolving in your life on a regular basis. And then the second thing that I want to say here is just asking for help and knowing what to ditch. So if you know what is like the bare essentials and you can maintain that, and the rest of the stuff can go by the wayside in your home and your business, that's really important. And secondly, when you know what these things are, when you know what needs to get done, and hey, if I don't do the dishes, tomorrow is completely derailed, or it's a Saturday or a Sunday, and you know that if you don't get groceries in the house, the whole week is going to be really hard, you can outsource that, right? And you know that that is a thing that you have to get done. You're not just looking around at everything that has to get done and paralyzed by this idea of, I don't know what is the most important thing to do. So essentially, having that clarity of what actually needs to be managed and kind of the hierarchy within, you're able to ask for help so much easier. And I ask for help a lot. A huge part of my method is just ensuring that you know how to communicate what it is that needs to be done and who in your family has the right strengths. because all of our kids and our spouses are really willing to help. They just need to be intrinsically motivated to be involved in that. And when we're tapped out as mom because we're caregiving, we need help. And so I do ask for help a lot.
So good. So good. Yeah. Because if there's anything we can count on, it's that things are not going to go as planned often. So having those systems in place and those kind
Yeah,
of outlets are so good. All right, Chelsea. Well, we're going to move now into our lightning round where I'm just going to ask you some random, fun, personal questions
fun.
just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Let's see. If they made a movie about your life, who would you want to play you?
Julia Roberts.
Oh, yes. Julia.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, she's my favorite.
What is your guilty pleasure TV show?
American Idol. My
Yeah.
absolute favorite. I'm a reality TV junkie. I also watch a ton of CrossFit videos on YouTube at night with my husband. It's amazing.
Nice. What's your go-to like get it done song?
Mm. Well, it's not a song, but it's a playlist. And I have two of them. One of them is called Caffeine Country on iTunes, and the other one is called Inspired Chill. So one of them is like coffee shop, and the other one's like we need to like go all in. So those are my two go-to playlists.
Okay. What if you could only eat one food for the rest of your life? Calories don't count.
Oh my gosh, this is like one of the we have communication cards. We use them all the time. And like table talk cards, with the kids. And this is
Mm-hmm.
one that's on there, and I never know how to answer. We all go back and forth. Oh my gosh. The first thing I would say it would be chocolate, but I also think eggs are really versatile and I
Good answer. Very practical. What's something most people don't know about you?
love them. That I am not rigid or regimented, that I love freedom. I hate being told what to do. And I did not create systems because I love them. I created them because they help me thrive and they reward me with the things that I really want to see happen. I think people always really get me wrong. Yes, I'm a one on the Enneagram, and I guess old school, they would peg me as a type A, but I'm a real free bird. I love my free time. I love to just do whatever the heck I want. And um, people I don't think would know that by looking at my systematic brand and what I teach, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Well, before we wrap up, please tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can learn more about what you do and the systems you offer and all that good stuff.
Yeah, actually I have my time blocking method is completely free on my website. So you can go to chelseajo.co/time blocking workbook, and that will give you my entire method. It gives you practice sheets and it shows you a breakdown, exactly what it looks like, how to put it in your paper planner. It's amazing. So chelseajo.co/time blocking workbook. And then if you love listening to podcasts, or YouTube, we just launched our YouTube channel and our podcast has been around for over 5 years and we have like almost 550 episodes on there. So that is Systemize Your Life anywhere where you stream podcasts or watch YouTube.
Amazing. So many episodes. That's incredible.
I know. Going strong, going strong. We've been hammering that out since, and I still record it in my closet. And it's just me. I do all the editing, but it's been incredible. It's been such an amazing way to connect with people and to share you know, my story and these systems and really help women. Obviously, I have two programs that you can invest in where I just literally teach you my method and you can get it in your life in less than a month. And then we have support and community and coaching for a year. But there are some people that just aren't ready for that step yet. Women have a hard time investing in themselves and they like to dabble in things for free for a long time. And so the podcast is just chock full of anything and everything. I definitely don't hold back. I share it all there. So yeah, you guys will love it.
Yeah. And the closet is the best place to record a podcast. My
It sure
first
is.
office in our previous home was in my closet.
Hmm.
And it was the best sound. So
The
I
best.
get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
thank
love
you
it.
so much for being here, Chelsea, and sharing all your time blocking tips. I know I learned a ton, and I'm sure our listeners did too.
Yeah, thank you for having me.